My name's Linda Bateman, and I live on Tecumseh. We've been here since August of 1997, so we're still newcomers in Strathmere years. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about Elizabeth Bergus and our experience with her since she was our neighbor. We had looked at houses from Brigantine to Cape May, and we kept coming back to Strathmere because we wanted a single family house, and we liked the quietness. We didn't want a boardwalk, we didn't want miniature golf. And our realtor, Rita Knowles, was also a neighbor at our house, our main house, and she called Elizabeth to ask about the house, what's going on with the house. And Elizabeth then started to interrogate Rita about what kind of people were these people, who are you bringing to who are going to be my neighbors. And I could hear her saying, they'll plant flowers, they'll take care of their yard, you'll love them, it'll be great. So finally Rita said, well, can you tell me anything about the house? And she said, I hear it has squishy floors. So we weren't sure what that meant, but luckily we had a good inspector. We bought the house and we moved in August of 1997. And my husband and I were in the living room filled with boxes. The house really needed a good cleaning. We couldn't unpack. And all of a sudden our storm door opens, just pulled open, and we hear this noise, and it was Elizabeth, and she said, this is how we do it in Strathmere, nobody knocks. And she's standing there with a notebook and a pen, which I think she pulled out of her bun. If you remember Elizabeth and her bun, that was her look for quite a while. And she said, I need your emergency contact information. In case something goes wrong and you're not here, I need to be able to get in touch with you. And we're looking at each other and looking at the mess and thought, right now? She needs to have this right now. So we dutifully gave our information, and she said something along the effect of, okay, well, I'll leave you alone, and I guess welcome to Strathmere. I don't know what else she said. And she left, and my husband looked at me and said, now that's gonna be trouble. And little did we know that she would come to be our Strathmere family, another kind of grandmother figure for our kids, a good friend, a good confidant, great storyteller. And she was kind of the Tecumseh nurse, and we sent everybody to her, including one time when my son took one too many skate runs at the skate park, and I'd been at the Acme loading up with groceries to open the season, and he called me and said, I think I broke my wrist. And at this point I've got a summer's worth of cold stuff and everything in my car. He had taken his pads off, so I was not too happy with him. And we came home and I said, go see Mrs. Bergus and see if she thinks you need an x-ray while I unpack the groceries. And next thing you know, my phone rings. You know very well this boy broke his wrist and he needs to go to the ER. Why did you send him to me so that I could tell him his summer is ruined? Yeah, well, I wanted to get the ice cream put away. So we did indeed go to the ER, and he did spend 6 weeks in a cast instead of in the ocean. But she was just a bird, and at her memorial, a lot of people told stories about her, I wouldn't say more brusque side, but about her more business-like side. She was all business, and to us, she was just somebody who got to know us, who she'd sit on our back porch and have her cigarette, and the kids would talk her into telling stories, and she would talk about camping in Egypt in the desert, and camel races, and just unimaginable experiences that she had in Sudan and Cairo and in Beirut. The kids going to school on a donkey was pretty funny. They had to evacuate many times when it was unsafe and have to leave Donald, or sometimes the kids had to go back, and it was really a crazy kind of life for her. But one night she mentioned the Hindenburg, and our little ones hadn't heard of the Hindenburg, and she was aghast to think that somebody living in New Jersey wouldn't know about the Hindenburg. So she, with great gusto, told us all about the Hindenburg. And now whenever we need a laugh or whenever we hear Hindenburg, we all giggle and we think of that night because it was such a dramatic story. And one other time, when we started to let our son stay down during the week by himself, she said, don't worry, I'll keep an eye on him. And I thought, oh, I know you will. and she talked to him and said, this is just between the two of us. If there's a problem, you and I will talk. Your parents won't have to know anything unless they think you're doing something that's unsafe. So they made a deal, and he would tell her, he'd call her and say, I'm going to stay in Ocean City tonight with my friend. I don't want you to worry about me. And in his mind, he's thinking Mrs. Bergus is watching every move. And in her mind, she's thinking, well, maybe I'll take an afternoon nap. I was out on that ambulance call, and she really didn't know what was going on. And one night, she said, how are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm starving. And she said, oh, your mother didn't leave you any food. That's terrible. Why don't you be my guest tonight at Mildred's? So he got all cleaned up. They went to Mildred's, and she's telling me this story and chastising me. And I opened the freezer and showed her all the food that I had left for him that he was not in the mood to microwave for. And she kind of looked at me and said, well, I enjoyed the company. And she would take our youngest daughter and say, come on, Lauren, ride in the ambulance with me. I have to go to Spinner weekend or whatever it was, and say, I'll let you work the sirens. Ride with me, ride with me. And she ended up doing her community service for high school with Elizabeth. And she'd say, come on, we're going to the firehouse to straighten up, which meant I have to wash the dishes. But they learned a lot from her about community service, about a world that they hadn't experienced yet. But mostly she just took the time. A lot of people look at kids as somebody, but she took the time to get to know each and every one of them. And she'd call us during the winter. We'd come down during the winter and spend some time with her, and just loved the relationship that we had with her. And she would say, it's so good to look over and see your lights on and have somebody in the neighborhood. And then when she was gone and we'd come down and her house would be dark, that was so hard for us to look over there and think how much we missed her. So yes, it was all about the fire company, and it was never how many sweatshirts or t-shirts or blankets do you want. It wasn't do you want them, it was how many do you want. Of course you wanted these things, and that part of her we always got a kick out as well. But she'll always have a soft spot. And one other nice thing that's happened from this is that we became friends with her children and watched her children grow up with our children, and they're celebrating, I believe, it's their 25th year of friendship this year. Or is it the 20th? I forget, but it's really cool. And they've visited them in London. We had visited them in London. So it's just been a wonderful relationship and a nice Tecumseh story. Thank you.